Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Jack. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I know a lot of you struggle with. It's the fear of speaking English.
To help us dive into this, we have a fantastic expert with us, Elena. Elena, you've helped so many people overcome this fear. I can't wait to hear what insights you have for our listeners.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Jack. I can definitely relate to that feeling of being afraid to speak up,
Mm.
especially in a new language. I think a lot of people worry about making mistakes or being judged. But I want to tell you, it really is possible to overcome that fear. And you can become a confident English speaker.
Absolutely. I think one of the most common fears is being laughed at when you're speaking English. Like maybe you're worried about your accent, or maybe you're worried about messing up the grammar. It can be hard to put yourself out there like that. Oh, for sure. I remember when I was first learning English, I was so scared of making mistakes. One time I was at a coffee shop and I was trying to order a drink. And I just completely butchered the pronunciation. And I was like, oh my gosh, everyone's staring at me. They're judging me. But then the barista smiled and she helped me fix my pronunciation. And I realized that most people are really understanding and they really appreciate when you're trying to speak their language.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think we tend to overthink it
Yeah.
and imagine the worst case scenario. But most of the time, people are really kind and helpful.
Exactly. And everyone makes mistakes when they're learning. I mean, even native English speakers make grammar mistakes sometimes. It's all part of the process. So don't be afraid to make those mistakes. It's how we learn.
Yeah, I love that. It's not about being perfect, it's about making progress. Now, Lane, I know you're a big believer in the power of community and support when it comes to language learning. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Surrounding yourself with people who are supportive and who understand your journey can make a world of difference. So, like maybe joining a language exchange group or finding a forum online where you can connect with other English learners. Those can be really safe and encouraging spaces to practice speaking, and you don't have to worry about being judged.
It's so important to remember that you're not alone in this. And it's great to have other people to celebrate your wins with you and to offer encouragement when you're feeling stuck. But even when we're surrounded by supportive people, sometimes that anxiety still creeps in. So, what are some things we can do in those moments to calm our nerves and feel more confident?
One technique that I've found really helpful is to reframe anxiety as excitement. Our bodies react in very similar ways to both of those emotions. Like our heart races, our palms sweat, we might feel a little shaky. But instead of thinking of those feelings as fear, you can choose to see them as excitement.
So, like you're telling yourself, I'm not nervous, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. It might seem a little strange at first, but it can really make a difference in how you feel.
That's a great tip. And I think it really connects with the importance of mindset when it comes to language learning. Like if you believe in yourself, if you believe that you can improve, that can have a huge impact on your confidence.
Absolutely. Our thoughts really influence our emotions and our actions. So instead of focusing on your fears and doubts, try to focus on your strengths and your goals. Like remind yourself why you're learning English in the first place. And imagine yourself speaking confidently and fluently.
I love that. And, in addition to having that positive mindset, I think it's also important to have some practical tools to help us manage those moments of anxiety.
For sure. Sometimes simple breathing exercises can be super effective. Just taking a few deep breaths, inhaling slowly through your nose and exhaling slowly through your mouth, it can help to slow down your heart rate and relax your body.
Yeah, breathing exercises are something I use in all kinds of situations. There's so many great resources online if you want to explore different techniques. Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of physical activity. Sometimes just getting up and moving your body can help to release tension and reduce anxiety.
That's a great reminder. We often think of language learning as a purely mental activity, but our physical well-being plays a big role as well. Now, I think we need to address a common misconception that I hear a lot, and that is that you need to speak perfectly in order to be good at English.
Oh, that is such a myth. And it can really hold people back. Remember, the goal is to communicate. Focus on getting your message across clearly, even if you make a few mistakes along the way.
Absolutely. It's about connecting with others and expressing yourself. It's not about achieving some kind of unrealistic level of perfection.
Exactly. Embrace those imperfections. They're part of what makes your language unique and interesting.
And you know what? They often make for the most memorable conversations. So we've talked about the importance of mindset, reframing, anxiety breathing exercises, embracing imperfections. These are all really great tools to have in your arsenal as you're working towards overcoming your fear of speaking English. But there's one more crucial element that we need to talk about, And that's practice.
You're absolutely right. You can't become a confident speaker without putting in the time and effort to practice. But the good news is there are so many fun and engaging ways to do it.
I'm excited to hear about some of your favorite tips for practicing. But before we do that, let's take a short break, and we'll be right back. And we're back. We were talking about the importance of practice in overcoming the fear of speaking English.
Practice really is essential. It's how we build our skills and our confidence. And when it comes to speaking English, there are just so many fun and engaging ways to practice.
Absolutely. It shouldn't feel like a chore. It can actually be a really fun part of your learning journey.
Mhm.
So, Lena, what are some of your favorite ways to practice speaking English?
Well, one technique that I really love is called shadowing. And basically, it involves listening to a recording of a native English speaker. And you just repeat what they're saying, trying to match their pronunciation and their intonation as closely as you can.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of shadowing. Sounds like a great way to improve your pronunciation and your fluency.
It really is. And you can do it anywhere, anytime. You can shadow while you're walking. You can shadow while you're cooking. You can even shadow while you're taking a shower.
That's great. So you don't need any special equipment or resources. You just need your ears and your voice.
Exactly. And another great way to practice is to find a language partner. This could be a friend, a colleague, or even someone you meet online. The important thing is that they're also learning English, and you can schedule regular conversations with each other, either in person or online, and you can practice speaking in a really relaxed and supportive environment.
I think having a language partner can be really motivating. It gives you someone to hold you accountable and to celebrate your progress with.
Absolutely. And it can also help you to learn new vocabulary and idioms in a more natural way.
And, if you're not quite ready to have a conversation with a language partner, you can always just start by talking to yourself.
That's a great point. Talking to yourself in English can actually be a really effective way to practice. You
Mhm.
can describe what you're doing, you can think out loud, you can even have imaginary conversations. The key is to get your mouth moving and to start thinking in English.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel self-conscious about talking to themselves, but it's actually a very common technique used by language learners.
Mhm.
And it's a great way to build fluency and confidence without any pressure.
Exactly. And another technique that I recommend is recording yourself speaking English. I know this can be a little intimidating at first, but it's a really valuable tool for identifying areas where you need to improve.
Oh, I can see how that would be helpful. Like it gives you a different perspective on your own speech.
Exactly. You might notice that you're making certain pronunciation errors or that you're using certain grammatical structures incorrectly. And once you're aware of those areas, you can start to work on improving them.
And I bet it's also really encouraging. Like as you listen back to your recordings over time, you can see how much progress you're making.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to get creative with your practice. Like
Hmm.
you can sing along to English songs. You can watch English language movies and TV shows. You can even read English books and articles out loud.
Yeah, I love that. It's about finding ways to make practice enjoyable and to make it a part of your daily routine.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the more comfortable and confident you'll become speaking English in real life situations.
And speaking of real life situations, I think it's so important to remember that the ultimate goal of learning English is to be able to communicate effectively in those situations.
Mm.
So it's important to practice speaking in a variety of contexts.
You're absolutely right. Don't just limit yourself to practicing with other learners or in the comfort of your own home. Seek out opportunities to use your English in real world settings, like ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, chatting with a native English speaker.
I think those real world interactions can be so valuable because they force you to think on your feet and to use your English in a more spontaneous way.
Exactly. And even if you make mistakes, those interactions will help you to learn and improve.
It's also important to remember that communication is about more than just words. It's about body language, tone of voice, facial expressions.
That's a great point. Nonverbal communication plays a huge role in how we convey our message and how others perceive us.
So even if you're feeling a little nervous about speaking English, remember to smile, make eye contact, use your body language to project confidence.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for clarification if you don't understand something. Most people are happy to help.
Yeah, I think sometimes we're so worried about making mistakes that we forget that it's totally okay to ask for help.
Absolutely. In fact, asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It shows that you're eager to learn and that you're not afraid to put yourself out there.
And you know what? I think it's also important to celebrate those small victories along the way. Like maybe you finally ordered your coffee in English without feeling flustered.
Mhm.
Or maybe you had a short conversation with a native speaker and you understood everything they said.
Those little wins can be so motivating. They remind us that we're making progress and that we are capable of achieving our goals.
And they build our confidence to keep practicing and to keep pushing ourselves further.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are so many resources available to support you on your journey, from online courses and language exchange apps to English-speaking clubs and community groups.
And of course, there's always deep dive to guide you along the way.
We're here to provide you with the knowledge, the tools, and the inspiration you need to overcome your fear of speaking English and achieve fluency.
Now, before we wrap up this episode, I want to talk about one more technique that can be really powerful for building confidence, and that's visualization.
Visualization is a mental technique where you create a really vivid image in your mind of yourself successfully speaking English in a specific situation.
So, for example, if you're feeling nervous about an upcoming presentation, you might close your eyes and imagine yourself giving that presentation confidently and fluently, engaging the audience and getting positive feedback.
Exactly. And the amazing thing about visualization is that our brains often don't differentiate between real experiences and vividly imagined ones. So when you repeatedly visualize yourself speaking English successfully, you're actually training your brain to feel more confident and less anxious in those real-life situations.
Wow, it's like you're creating a mental blueprint for success.
Exactly.
And it can also help to kind of quiet those negative thoughts that can hold us back.
Absolutely. Visualization can help to reprogram our subconscious mind and to create new positive beliefs about our ability to speak English.
You know, I think some people might be a little skeptical about the power of visualization. It almost sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, I understand that. But visualization has actually been studied extensively, and there's a growing body of research that supports its effectiveness. Athletes have been using visualization techniques for decades to enhance their performance, and it's becoming increasingly popular in other fields as well, including language learning.
Well, I think it's definitely worth a try. What have you got to lose, right?
Exactly. And even if you're not sure if it'll work for you, just taking a few minutes each day to focus on your goals and to visualize yourself speaking English confidently can have such a positive impact on your mindset and your motivation.
So visualization is another powerful tool to add to your toolbox for overcoming the fear of speaking English.
Absolutely. And remember, consistency is key. The more you practice these techniques, the more natural and effortless speaking English will become.
And the more you'll be able to enjoy all the amazing benefits that come with being able to communicate effectively in English.
Exactly. So keep practicing, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself. You got this.
That's a great message to end on. And I think it's the perfect segue into our final thoughts for this episode. We'll be right back to wrap up our deep dive into overcoming the fear of speaking English. Welcome back, everyone. So glad you could stick with us. We've really covered a lot of ground today talking about overcoming the fear of speaking English.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. And I really hope our listeners are feeling inspired and empowered to take their English to the next level.
Me too. And I think it's important to remember that perfection isn't the goal here.
Right, you don't have to be perfect. It's easy to get caught up comparing ourselves to native speakers or thinking that we need to know every single grammar rule before we can even open our mouths. But the truth is, fluency is a journey, and it's okay to make mistakes along the way.
Yeah, those mistakes are actually how we learn and grow.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, communication is about connection. It's about being able to share your ideas and thoughts with others. It's not about speaking perfectly.
I love that. It takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
And it lets us just focus on the joy of communicating.
Exactly. And when we focus on connection, that fear tends to melt away.
Now, Elena, I'm curious. Have you ever had a moment where you felt really nervous about speaking English? And if so, how did you overcome that fear?
Oh, yeah, definitely. When I first moved to the United States, I was terrified to speak English in public. I remember one time I had to give a presentation at a conference, and I was so nervous I could barely breathe.
Oh, wow. That sounds really tough. So what did you do to manage those nerves?
Well, I used a combination of the techniques that we've been talking about today. I practiced my presentation over and over again until I felt more comfortable with it. I visualized myself delivering the presentation successfully, and I just tried to focus on connecting with the audience rather than worrying about making mistakes.
So how did it go?
You know what? It actually went really well. The audience was really engaged, and I got some great feedback afterwards.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you that we really are capable of overcoming our fears and achieving our goals.
Exactly. And it's so important to celebrate those victories no matter how small they might seem.
Absolutely. Like maybe you finally had a conversation with a native speaker and you felt like you were understood. Or maybe you were able to order food at a restaurant without feeling completely flustered.
Yeah, those little wins are so important. They help us to build our confidence and they keep us motivated to keep going.
And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There's a huge community of English learners out there. So find those people who are supportive, whether it's online or in person. Connect with other English learners, share your experiences, and encourage each other.
We're all in this together. And the more we can support each other, the easier it becomes to overcome our fears and reach our full potential.
So to all of our listeners out there, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep believing in yourselves.
You are capable of achieving fluency and confidence in speaking English.
Elena, this has been such a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise with us
It
today.
was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope you found this deep dive helpful. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. There are so many resources available to support you, and we're always here to cheer you on.
So go out there and practice with confidence. Embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories, and never give up on your dream of speaking English fluently.
That's right. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive. Until then, keep learning and keep exploring.